What up, y'all? Back again. Look at this structure right here. This beautiful saint. Something else, isn't it? How we carved that sucker. It's almost like it came out of one big piece of stone. Look at that thing. We built that with no technology, y'all. A couple of hard-working men with some chisels. And they had some big, tall, long ladders. And they worked on that for a long, long time to get it like that. I mean, we're talking about, a couple of guys could do that in no time, especially back in the 1850s or before. And how they built that structure, we're not even going to get into that. But look at this stuff. Tell me, when did they start painting ceilings like that? And why aren't we doing that today? How do you paint murals as beautiful as that with such vibrant colors that even in this day and age, they still look vibrant? These things are all over the earth, all over the face, all over the face or place, however you want to call it, of the earth. They just can't be recreated or not to the level of the ornate abilities that they had back then. We're talking about they would put ornaments on, or they would jewel up even the ceilings, the places that you don't really spend any time on these days. Even up on the roof, you're talking about without having some sort of airship, you wouldn't even be able to see the roof, but they're still ordered and ordained to have jewelry on them. They're ornate on another level outside of what humanity can do. And the fact of the matter is, if we follow the narrative of the historical writings and the historians over the last 2,000 years, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. You would have to be a complete imbecile, really, to believe a lot of this mess. A lot of the stuff that we see today that is beautiful. They're wonders of the world, some of these structures. We couldn't build them if we wanted to, with all our technology, computers, our fuel engines, our motors, all our hydraulics, our pneumatics, all of our jet propulsion, all of our cranes and diggers and dump trucks. We can't build this stuff today because it takes a certain type of skilled labor that is so precise. We don't even know how to begin to build these structures. If you were to get the richest, most affluent, and the most intelligent engineers and the best free thinkers and scientists, chemists, and engineers, you couldn't build this stuff even with the greatest minds in the world in today's era. So I'd like to know how they did it pre-1850 or pre-1900 for that matter. They didn't even have electricity. They didn't have electricity until the 1890s, and that was only in like one place, somewhere along the Niagara Falls to the Boston, Philadelphia area, and that was it. You're talking about we didn't really have electricity, and it wasn't really affluent until the 20s, really, 1920s or so. And then when you look back, you find we didn't create or we didn't invent anything. Most everything that we know of that we have on a daily basis that we use on a regular basis, that we watch on TV, the sports, anything from sports to even a lot of these countries. You go back past 200 years and it's almost like they're not even as old as you originally would have thought. And it's hard to find a gravestone before the 1750s. 5 or 10 of them that haven't been what looks like tampered with. These, in my opinion, are leftover structures from what the Bible would call or claim to be the millennial kingdom. And there's a lot of proof and a lot of evidence that is the case, that they added several hundred years to the calendar. And a lot of these catastrophes you see since the time of Nero in 66 AD was, it's hard to believe our history. When you start to explore and to navigate into it with an open mind, free thinking, you start to realize that it's quite utterly impossible. Some of the things that were told in our history occurred. When you look at how many thousands of miles armies traveled over tops of cold, frozen mountains on horseback, and to take over the world, like Genghis Khan, for instance. These are really incredibly unbelievable stories which pop holes all in your history and causes you to rethink everything. And the added time to the calendar. You did have 1,000-year church age reign. And I do believe the mud flood was what ended this this kingdom. And we may very much so be, in fact, in what Revelation would describe as Satan's little season, short season, where even the very elect in Christ would be deceived. And I think that this kingdom era is hidden. It's hidden. And, God had it hidden like that so that we would still have to seek him out through faith. Because if we knew all this occurred, for the most part, we would not need a whole lot of faith to believe, right? But even if you go back into the 1850s or 1812 or 1776, whenever this mud flood catastrophe that affected the whole earth occurred, this reset, which isn't being spoken about anywhere in our history, that's the thing too. There's no skeletal structures of anybody. So did they all get raptured? And then how do we come back? Because what it seems like is children started to come out of Cabbage Patches, live children. And that's where the Cabbage Patch Kid came from. Thank you for watching. I'm going to stop here and do a part 2 on this. But these are just beautiful, amazing structures that we supposedly built with no technology, some of which they would claim took several hundred years to build, and others months to a year to build, which are both unbelievable. But thank you for watching. Till next time, catch me on Revelation N505 YouTube.